Erik Horne here with Jason Reid and Bill Rhoden of Andscape, and we are here on. Wait, can I use that term, guys? Can we say that? Did we
No,
decide if we're going to say that? We're
no,
not going to do it.
no, we're not saying that.
We're not
No,
doing it. All right,
we're not saying
we're going to go with NFL Fire Your Coach Monday. That's what I'd like to call it. Lots of openings in the NFL this offseason. Now, we already had some even before we came into today, but we're recording this on a Monday. Today, we saw the Cleveland Browns dismiss Kevin Stefanski. We saw the Arizona Cardinals dismiss Jonathan Gannon. And prior to today, we had the Falcons over the weekend dismiss the GM and the head coach. Terry Fontenot out, Raheem Morris out. And then in addition to that, we had some midseason fire. Oh, actually, no, forgot about that. Forgot about the Raiders. The Raiders also today fired Pete Carroll. So we have, as of now, 6 openings in the NFL. Might be some more by the time you listen to this video. The Cardinals, the Browns, the Raiders, the Falcons, New York Giants, and Tennessee Titans. I asked you guys to go through a quick exercise ranking your openings from 1 to 6, with 1 being the one that you think is the best or most enticing of the openings so far, to 6 being the least. Who would like to go first? Would you like me to go first? Or maybe
Jason.
we could go all the way around and give our number ones and we can go like that. How about we do
I,
that?
I'll defer to the esteemed Mr. Bill Rhoden or to the esteemed Mr. Erik Horne.
Okay,
Well,
this is
I'll
what we'll do.
defer. I'll defer back to you.
Okay, this is what we'll do. We'll each give our number 1 and we'll do it that way. And then we'll just go down the list. We'll go to our number 2, our number 3. And if we have one that somebody mentions, we'll say, okay, that's my number, whatever. And we'll just keep going. Okay, my number 1 opening is the Atlanta Falcons. Anyone else?
My number 1 is the Giants.
Okay. Jason?
My number 1 is the Cardinals, and we're going to give a reason why.
Ooh, okay. See, that's interesting.
Cardinals. I had them at the bottom of my list.
That is very interesting. Jason, can you give us a reason as to why you would pick the Cardinals number 1 out of those 6?
Well, Kyler Murray has already been a Pro Bowl quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
In the NFL, you cannot win without a quarterback. So I think if Kyler Murray can recapture his previous form, you have a quarterback. You have a guy who has gone to the playoffs. You have a guy who has been to Pro Bowls, who was, the rookie of the year. So I think if he can get back to that form, you have a guy who, can at least get you to the playoffs. And that's a huge thing.
I mean, almost at the exact opposite end of that, Jason. I mean, I think that they are going to move on from Kyler Murray. I mean, I agree with you if, but he hadn't done it. He's always broken down near the end. And then remember when they had that stuff about putting in his contract about studying and all that. So, I mean, I don't know. It just seems all the signs point to that. He's kind of hit his ceiling already.
Yeah.
And you walk into that gig and you're thinking that you got something and you really don't. So that's why I put it at the top, at the bottom, and why I put the Giants at the top, because at least you've got the potential of a really good quarterback, a really good defense. They just need some adult in the room to read the riot act to the young team. That's why I kind of tongue in cheek wrote that Brian Flores would be the right Brian to be hired there. And I know that will never, ever, ever happen, but they need some type of hardcore person like that. So anyway, the Giants would be my number 1.
Okay. And, my number 1 was the Falcons, because you've already got a lot of good young components. You just need the quarter. And obviously the quarterback's the most important piece. And we don't know what's going to happen with Penix, Kirk Cousins, whatever. But Bijan Robinson's a top 5 running back, maybe a top 3 or 2 running back in the NFL. You've got a solid receiver in Drake London. The defense really upticked this year. They're on the verge of being a top 10 defense. They forced, top 10 in turnovers this year, forced 23. I think you've got the bones of a really good young core. And one of the things that I looked at for this exercise that we're doing is I looked at the division you're playing in. And I know that that's kind of year to year that can be volatile, but the NFC South, you guys saw it this weekend, man. It's rough. It's rough in the South, man. So when you're going up against the Saints, the Panthers, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a bunch of teams that you really don't know what direction they're going in, I would love to be a general manager or a coach going into the Falcons situation. I just thought that was a clear-cut number one for me. The only thing holding that back is the quarterback. And look, maybe the Falcons deal for a Kyler Murray. Maybe they go and they get a guy who's a little bit more veteran to go with those young receivers in the young defense.
He's still 5'7" or 5'8" or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
whether he's in Arizona or whether he's in Atlanta, he's still going to be 5'7" or 5'8" or whatever. And then, like you said, he's the same thing with the quarterback. And Penix, when he's healthy, but he hadn't been healthy even in high school. I mean, not high school, but college. I mean, he had multiple surgeries on his knees. He's been hurt here, and that's a big problem. That's a big, big, big if. And as you pointed out, man, we don't know. Kirk Cousins played really well, but again, we don't know because you don't know who the general manager is going to be. So I don't know, man. I hear you, but Atlanta seems to be a mess.
Yeah, and look, a lot of these teams we're talking about are a mess. You can say that about a bunch of these teams, and we're going to get to some more of them. Who did you guys have for y'all's number two?
Go ahead, Jason.
Well, actually, I had the Falcons my number two just because there is a lot of talent there, a lot of young talent, as Erik mentioned, what they did defensively this year. But, I think that if you're ranking them, well, we are ranking them, obviously. In these rankings, Erik made the point about the young talent. And I think that, the quarterback is the biggest component, and we don't know what that looks like, but they do have young talent there.
That's why
at a lot of the spots.
That's why I've got the Browns as my number two.
Okay.
Because they do, I think, have more of a quarterback than anybody we've talked to, except maybe the Giants. I think, Shedeur has proven at least that he can play quarterback in the NFL. Now, we don't know if he's a surefire star. And also, remember, their first round, their rookies have been great. The Browns rookies have been outstanding. So I think that there's more of a structure there with the Browns. And I know we're going to talk later about what this means for Shedeur. So my number two is the Browns because they've got a great rookie core and potentially we'll go round and round about Shedeur, but potentially somebody who they can at least be a placeholder for the season.
Yeah, I had the Titans as two. I'm bullish on Cam Ward. They need to get him some help, obviously. They got the number 4 pick coming up in the draft. I think that that's a prime position for them to get some offensive help. So solely on the quarterback situation, the rest of the roster needs a lot of help, but they're going to have high picks in every round. So I figured I would rather go with that as opposed to some of the other situations we're going to get to that are just as dicey and they don't have a quarterback that I like, or they're not going to have a quarterback drafted in this upcoming draft that I would like more than Cam Ward. So that's why I went with the Titans as number 2. Who do y'all have at number 3?
I got the Browns at number 3. Just, I went back and forth with Browns, Falcons because there was a young talent base at other positions. So it was a toss-up for me. But, I went Browns 3.
And I've got the Falcons 3. For all the reasons you mentioned, I just really concerned about the quarterback. I mean, they played really well down the stretch.
Yeah.
The defense played really well. You're right. They got a great running back. But again, it just seems they haven't figured out the quarterback. So I got them as number 3.
Yeah. And against my better judgment about the factor I talked about with the divisions, I actually went with the Giants as my number 3 because I do think, Jackson Dart's solid. I think that the young defensive line they got coming up, like you were talking about, Bill, they got young players there that are good. They're going to have the number 5 pick, which is a prime position for them to upgrade on either side of the ball. I just don't trust their management. And you're there, Bill. You know what's going on in New York. I mean, it seems like they've bungled the coaching situation ever since Tom Coughlin. So I just don't trust them to be able to get the right person in there to coach. And that's a big problem with a lot of these teams we're talking about. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 of the teams that we're talking about are picking in the top 6 in this draft. And it's no coincidence that they fired their coach. So,
right. And remember, the owners don't fire themselves. And a lot of these cases, that's who should be fired.
That's a big issue.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're not going to fire themselves. They're going to fire everybody else. So a lot of them on their 3rd and 4th head coach in like 6 years. So, you kind of go in circles. But
that's the major issue where a lot of these teams. Okay, number 4, I can go first, and then we can go back around. I had the Browns at 4. I like the other quarterback situations of the other teams I had, the Falcons, Titans, Giants, a little bit more than the Browns. Not to say that I'm down on Shedeur, but with them bringing in a new coach, I don't know what that coach is going to do with Shedeur and how he's going to feel about him. I know, Bill, you had a great column about Shedeur's final game in his season where it seemed like Andrew Berry talked highly about him and put some confidence behind him. But again, Andrew Berry's still there and Kevin Stefanski was there, and it didn't seem like Kevin Stefanski was 100% behind him. So we don't know what the new coach is going to be like. And they might even try and go and draft a quarterback depending on who comes out. So that's kind of my trepidation of putting them at the top, was we just don't know what's going to happen at the quarterback position. And we don't even know Deshaun Watson is going to be in the race, which I don't know if that would be a good or a bad thing at this point. He's probably one of the worst quarterbacks in the league when he was playing.
Yeah, what a circus. I've got the Cardinals as my number 4. Again, just because I really just have no faith in Kyler Murray. I don't know how you guys feel. I just feel like the Cardinals are just kind of like in limbo, man. They're just kind of out there in the desert.
They have the number 3 pick, so they're in a position to where they potentially could get a quarterback in that range. I think Kyler needs to change the scenery too. But
listen to New Orleans, E. Let's listen to Kyler to New Orleans.
Look, the guy in New Orleans is I watched him the past 2 weeks. I'm not saying I'm 100% in, but I'm definitely way more in. I owe him a minor apology. That guy, he's played ball the past couple of weeks, and they haven't played very great teams, but he's shown up. So if the Saints drafting at number 8, I'm looking at the list here. If there's a quarterback available, if they want to pass, cool by me, man. Give the guy a chance to go out and show it this next year. Jason, who do you have at number 4 on your list?
The Giants. I mean, there is young talent on the defensive side of the ball, but I'm not sold on Jackson Dart. This guy takes way too many hits, and I just don't know if he's going to get it through his head that you're not playing directional schools in the NFL. Like all these guys are elite, and I just don't know if he is going to be able to hold up.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's him and the other guy, Scatterable. They both, you can't. It's okay with Scatterable, but still, man, I think you put it the right way, Jay Reid. I mean, is he going to get it through your head? You think after? I think he's made more trips to the 10th than almost any other quarterback in the NFL. And you think that after about the 4th trip, he'd say, you know what, this isn't working. So yeah.
All right, guys, let's do our last 2 both at the same time when we get to each other. But bringing up the rear for me, I actually have the Raiders at 5 and the Cardinals last. And this was a big kind of division thing, draft thing for me. The Raiders have a chance to start fresh. They had the number 1 pick. They can trade down, get some assets. They can draft their quarterback number 1. We don't know what Fernando Mendoza is going to be, but they've got a nice stadium. They're indoors. I think they're in a division that's a little bit more gettable than the Cardinals division. The Cardinals, to me, like you said, Bill, the Kyler Murray thing, it's got to change. They're kind of stuck in this weird limbo. Their division is brutal. The 3 teams ahead of them in the division are all going to the playoffs. They all could have been division winners if they were in other divisions on their own. The Cardinals just seem stuck to me. So that's why I put the Raiders ahead of them. And shout out to the Raiders media meal, man. They had a good media meal. So I haven't been to the Cardinals stadium, but I would guess that the Raiders are probably a little better.
Yeah, no, you're right. And remember, the media dinner is going to stay constant. Coaches may come and go, but the Raiders media pregame meal is constant, and that you're absolutely right. They're A1. But the only problem is you take that Raiders job, man, and you're looking up at Denver, which is all of a sudden,
Yeah, that's rough.
a
It's rough.
monster. You're looking at the Chargers, kind of like a monster.
Yeah.
Kansas City, I don't think is going to stay, down for long. So you take that Raiders job, and you got Tom Brady lurking. I'm not comfortable, with that guy looking over my shoulder. And we texted about this during the play. The Indiana kid, uh, blanking on his name.
Mendoza?
Yeah, Mendoza. Man, I don't know about him. And I guess it gets to the whole flaw of the draft is that you spend all that time as a college player trying to get drafted, and you get to the top of the mountain, and you got to go to the worst team in the league. And is he cut out to go to the Raiders and make an impact? Maybe they'll keep Geno for another year's maybe season just to kind of season him. But I've got the Raiders at the bottom of my list. I've got the Titans and then the Raiders.
Yeah, I've got the same thing. I've got Titans and Raiders at the bottom. Titans, Cam, he took all the snaps for the Titans, or except when I think he got hurt in that last game.
Right.
But he took the majority of the snaps. That is really helpful, hopefully, for his development. But the Raiders situation,
Yeah.
look, the Raiders have been through so many iterations of management, and Mark Davis, who owns the team, he brought in Tom Brady, but the question now is, it's like, okay, yeah, is Brady going to be the force actually shaping the whole thing? And the reality of it is, a lot of great players have not made great general managers,
Right.
and I know that Brady
Right.
won't. I know that Brady won't technically be the general manager. He's still doing the announcing, but it certainly looks like he's going to be the one to shape this thing moving forward. I just don't know where they're going. They don't have a quarterback. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a mess. It's a big mess, and you know that's a running theme, and that's why I thought that this was a fun exercise to kind of see who we thought was the biggest mess. And, we've got some varying opinions here, but let's transition to one of the great messes of the NFL, the Cleveland Browns, who fired Kevin Stefanski, two-time NFL Coach of the Year after 6 seasons. They actually keep Andrew Berry, so Andrew Berry's going to get a chance to hire the next head coach. But of course, what does this mean for Shedeur Sanders? He gets to stick around, and he's going to be there next year, presumably. They're picking, let me see, I just saw this. They're picking sixth in the draft in what is being projected as a not very strong quarterback draft. Usually the quarterbacks or the quarterbacks that are being projected to take in the first round are probably not going to be available to the Browns at 6 if they did want to go the quarterback route. So what do we think this means for Shedeur Sanders, the Kevin Stefanski being fired?
Well, it depends on which side of the conspiracy theories you're on. If you believe that he never was in full support of Shedeur and that Andrew Berry was, then you figure that whoever becomes a coach at least will give lip service to like being on board with developing Shedeur. And read between, I think they're going to bring in another quarterback. Now what they're going to do with Dylan Gabriel, I don't know. I think they may have realized they may have overdrafted him. But I think they're going to bring in another quarterback. I certainly would. And again, man, Jay Reid, you study this. You know these quarterbacks. We're still torn about Shedeur. I'm not convinced. I think is he a starter? Is going to be a journeyman? Is he going to be kind of an intermittent starter? I just conclude that maybe all this was about in his head, just proving that, he could stand on his own 2 feet. That this is not his daddy doing this. He's proven that, for all the doubters, that I can play in this league. But that's as far as I'm willing to go. I don't know at what level, I'll defer to you. What level do you think he can play at?
Well, he's had some flashes, but the thing about this league is that many fans, or most fans don't understand, is that they're not going to keep running you out there for 17 weeks just based on flashes. You have to show consistency. And Shedeur has a cult following. I mean, we
Right.
know that. I remember, you've chronicled Shedeur since well, before the start in Las Vegas. And I remember when you went down to the preseason game in Carolina, you told me about, all these people who were coming up to you. And so I get it, historically, with the way the black quarterback has been treated in the NFL, that there's this groundswell of support for him because a lot of folk feel like he was done wrong.
Right.
Now, I was very clear about where I stood on that. I don't think racism stopped him from being drafted higher than he was drafted. I think it was a combination of factors, but mostly it was about his play on the field. I think the old expression, the film don't lie.
Right.
And we've seen many of the criticisms about what his film was. We've seen it on the field. Holds the ball too long, scrambles, takes crazy scrambles that lose yards. Doesn't have the biggest arm in the world. But can he be an effective starter? I don't think we can say definitively right now that this guy can't be a starter in the league. But what we can say is he hasn't shown enough for them to go all in on him.
Right.
Like what I mean, he hasn't shown that, oh my God, we were completely wrong about him. I mean, that's not where we're at. So I think with regard to the question we're asking, Berry being there and Stefanski no longer being there, I believe is the best thing possible for Shedeur.
Right.
But look, it was Stefanski this year. Berry ain't going to stay ahead of the law much longer if this
Right.
thing keeps going away. So I agree with you, Bill. I think they bring in a veteran quarterback. I think they probably draft a quarterback. I don't know what they do with Gabriel, but I think Shedeur will at least be in the mix. Whereas if Stefanski had stayed, I'm not sure about that.
Do you think that I was seeing one account that um, Deshaun Watson has looked very good, almost looked better than anybody else. Do you think they keep him? Because if
Well,
they do, and he's that good, I think we all agree that if he is good, he's better than anybody got, on the roster.
Well, that's the wild card in this whole thing. I mean, can you imagine the story if he resurrects his career at this point? It would be, an incredible story, and on the field, obviously. I'm just talking about on the
Right.
field. Um, and again, now I'm speculating wildly here, but if he is able to resurrect his career, well, could he be a bridge to get Shedeur more experience in the playbook, in the quarterback room, in practice, even though he's not running with the ones? I mean, there's what we know is there's so much we don't know right now.
Right.
But again, I agree with you. I think that because Berry, and they had a very strong draft class, I think it buys Shedeur more time.
Right. But Barry is on the clock because
Most
clearly
definitely.
he is on the clock. So he's got a vested interest in Shedeur being competent or getting that position right. And they've not gotten that position right anyway. I mean, we spent a lot of time, because I was on the Shedeur hunt, but at a certain point, like you're saying, is okay, that what's going on in the field? I mean, like the mayor is talking about him and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, man, we want some W's. So, you know,
Yeah, and they're going to have some opportunities to add some talent around him. So, and then he'll have a full off season of mini camp as well. So, going into the summer, he has a chance to be the most experienced guy in the building as far as the quarterbacks. Now, they bring in a veteran that might change, but he's been there for a whole year now. So I think that's gonna play into his advantage. But we don't know about the next coach coming in. Real quick, guys, before we go, with the openings, the 6 openings we have, and possibly more to come, we're looking at 2 really excellent black coordinators, defensive coordinators who had great years the past couple years, who were previously head coaches in Vance Joseph in Denver, and we have Brian Flores in Minnesota. Uh, is it is it cynical to say that they're going to be competing against each other in this coaching cycle? Because we know that black coaches sometimes get brought in for sham interviews or get brought in to fulfill the Rooney Rule. They're both defensive coordinators in a league where it seems like the coaching trend has been to go for offensive minds to be able to cultivate quarterbacks. But these two guys have led some just monster defenses this year, two of the top 5 defenses in the league. I want to get y'all's thoughts on what do we think about their chances going into this coaching cycle and where they could possibly fit.
Good.
Bill, you've written about this already. We know where you want Brian Flores to be.
Yeah, he ain't going to the Giants, but there's no way if I got a call for somebody from the Giants and you said, what is it about the snowball chance in hell? Because it's personal. It's really, really personal with them. And they are on opposite ends of the spectrum. They insist that they went according to the rule and that the whole thing of Belichick, and Belichick and all that, they said in definitive, we did not offer the job to Brian before he came in. And the Flores camp saying the exact opposite. So we got the memo, we got the letter, we got the thing from Belichick congratulating Brian, and he meant so that's never going to happen. But your question, I think, is a great question, and I'd be curious to hear Jay Reid weigh on this. Is do they cancel out each other? And I'm thinking the only issue is that the Denver coordinator does not have a lawsuit against the NFL. Flores has a lawsuit, and I think that's the club. He kind of betrayed. I mean, because I think everything he probably said about the Miami Dolphins owner was probably right. He probably did offer him money or give him money to lose games. He probably did want him to tamper with Brady, but from the billionaire standpoint, he betrayed the inner circle, so he's probably on their S list. The Denver's coordinator, who's your homeboy, I think people like him. I think they like him. He's proven to be good. He's been a head coach, so I think he probably has a leg up on Flores. But I think he has a leg up. But I think they both. And if we're in a perfect world, meaning if they were both white, then they both get jobs. But I think cynically, it's going to be one or the other.
And let me go more cynically, Bill. It could be neither.
Could be neither. Right.
I mean, they're both if they get jobs, they both would be getting second bites at the apple because they both previously been head coaches who were fired. And Flores had more success as a head coach than Vance did.
Right. Right. Actually, yes.
He did. So, but Flores, like you said, Bill, has the lawsuit. So, fellas, I think it's one of those things where are they very good coaches? Absolutely they are. They've proved it. Look what these units are doing. And heck, if the Broncos can get to the Super Bowl, it makes it I think then there's a very hard argument to be made against Vance Joseph getting another crack.
But really?
Well, I mean, if the Broncos go to the Super Bowl, and let's say they win the Super Bowl, and this thing is wide open this year. I mean, look at what this defense did. So, yeah, guys, I think that I don't think they necessarily cancel each other out. I don't know.
Why would that work against them, Jay Reid? Why would that work against Vance Joseph getting a shot? Head coach?
No. I'm saying that. No, I'm saying the opposite. That would
solidify
his candidacy. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Look, if a guy like Cliff Kingsbury is getting mentioned as somebody who could potentially get a second chance at a job, I don't know why Vance Joseph and Brian Flores wouldn't be in that conversation too. Now, okay, I take that back. I do know why Brian Flores wouldn't be in that conversation.
Right. Of course you know why. Right.
I know exactly why Brian Flores wouldn't be in that conversation because he's got a lawsuit out against an eighth of the league. But it just seems like, Cliff Kingsbury was a guy who came to the NFL with fewer credentials than some of these guys. He came from the college ranks, didn't do well in Arizona. Nobody does well in Arizona unless you're Bruce Arians. But now he's getting a sniff. He's getting looks again from teams because he's done good work with Jaden Daniels. And they're coming off a season from hell, and he'll get interviews. So we know this stuff's not logical. We know it doesn't make sense. We know that black coaches are up against it. But I just found it fascinating that two of the best defenses in the league are led by guys who, you know, in any other universe, if they were white, like you were saying, would be at the tippy top of the opportunities. And I also find it interesting this cycle too, that some of these openings have already had black head coaches in previous years or are coming off of a black head coach with a similar profile, like a Raheem Morris. You don't think that Atlanta is going to go for the same thing probably. So that's not a good thing for Vance Joseph or Brian Flores. You know, the Raiders went with our guy, who was our guy a couple years ago, Jason?
Antonio Pierce.
Antonio Pierce, who was a defensive mind. And, you know, they might not want to go back to that. Well, they might want to try something different. So it's tough. It's tough for these guys. But, you know, no matter what, you know, I hope that they get fair chances to go for some of these jobs.
Yeah. I will say this. I mean, this is, you know, Jason, you were at Pittsburgh in that tremendous game last night. I mean, one of the greatest games of the season. And I got to tell you, when the field goal, as the ball was going up in the air, I'm going back and forth, because I want Lamar to kind of get there, but I definitely want Tomlin to be out of the line of fire. So all the way on the ball's trajectory, you know, we're rooting for the story. And I'm like, you know, Lamar or Tomlin, And I was agnostic. And then when they missed it, I'm like, cool. You know, I'm glad. I hope that Tomlin makes a good run. I hope he gets a strong run.
We shall see.
Yeah. We shall see, gentlemen. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We'll be back next week after the wild card round, and maybe we'll have some more coaching updates, and then we'll check back with Jay and Bill after they're on the road for the playoffs this weekend in Chicago for Jason, and Bill will be in Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah. And by the way, we could call this going forward. We call it Blue Monday. What about that?
Blue Monday.
Blue Monday. Because you get the blues. If you get fired, you get the blues, right? You definitely have the blues.
Yeah.
So maybe we could huddle. We call Blues Monday. Blue Monday.
Okay, guys, I gotta go get some medicine because I was in Pittsburgh in 18-degree weather at 3 a.m. So I am going to tell you guys goodbye for now, and I can't wait to see you guys again soon. But I gotta go get some medicine.
All right.
All right, fellas. Thanks for joining us. We'll see y'all later.
All right, guys.
All right.
Bye-bye.